Community College Trustees has returned from closed session. We'll start the open session. There are no reportable items on the closed session. At this time, we will, gosh, this is a long thing. Pledge of Allegiance. How about our student trustee? Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Nune? Yes?
Please. I pledge allegiance
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, are there any requests from the trustees to reorder or any of the agenda items?
Motion
Here.
to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve from trustee Fellow. May I have a second?
Second.
Advisory vote? Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, agenda is approved as stands. There are introductions and recognitions from Dr. Verdian for our Measure P Oversight Committee.
I will ask Board President Trustee Lindawa to join me at the podium as we recognize the members who have served on the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Does it work? It's dead. Oh, no, it's not.
Okay, I'm going to just read I guess they all say the same thing, so I'm just going to read this resolution, and then I'll call up each member who is leaving the Measure P committee. Whereas, in this case, it will be Anthony Portantino has completed the term of service at the Pasadena City College Citizens Oversight Committee. And whereas Anthony Portantino has represented the trustee area number 1 within the community as a member of the Citizens Oversight Committee, and whereas Anthony Portantino, together with the Board of Trustees and the administrative staff, has been an active and effective partner in overseeing the process of the Measure P bond projects and fiscal management. Thereof, now therefore be it resolved that the Pasadena Area Community College District bestows upon Anthony Portantino special recognition for completion term of service at the Pasadena City College Citizens Oversight Committee. Mr. Portantino. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your service.
May I also have Mr. Alan Shea? Oh, not here. Miss Felicia Williams, my buddy in crime. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your service. Kelly Ban is not here.
Miss Kelly Bond, our former student trustee, not here. Miss Sandra Greenstein, not here. Thank you all for your service. Yes, wonderful. You know, it was through your expertise we were able to get all of this through and on time and under budget, so thank you all.
We'll miss you at next week's meeting.
Well, he's down here.
We do have one.
He's item H.
All right, at this time, we will take public comment on any non-agenda items. Trustee Fellow, do we have any?
Madam
requests?
President, we have one speaker this evening, Martin Enriquez.
Okay.
Honorable trustees and assembled persons, God bless America, my cherished city, the pearl of the San Gabriel Valley, Pasadena, and my adored alma mater, Pasadena City College. I have submitted my hard copies of the plan for 2011, 2014, and 2015 maps. I am now going to read the letter of 5 November 2014. Dear Honorable Trustee John Martin and all, regarding redistricting trustee areas, PACCD. Good health and happiness to you, sir. With all due respect, the following is my comment on the topic. 1. Redistricting Partners, Inc., a vendor of the California College League of California, concluded that the PACCD trustee area number 3 is not a Latino district. Testimony by Paul Mitchell in early 2012 before the Board of Trustees. Trustee John Martin can attest that I was a frequent commentator to the BOT before the election of his colleagues. There I was a witness to the turmoil that caused a good percentage, a fourth, a third, or more of the faculty and staff to be pink-slipped. That was 1983. I'm going to skip. Then in 1991, I drew a seven trustee area map for PACCD. At that point in time, I did not cast aspersions on the 1980s districting or any person. The PACCD trustee area number 3 had almost 10% too many people by April 1, 1990. The 1980s districting was at least a third plan. Now I know it was the fourth. Different from 75 and 77. Not only did the 1980s TA plan diminish the voting potential of Pasadena's Northwest residents by adding the affluent living south of Colorado, it also divvied up the Canela or Cinnamon population by reinforcing Pasadena's own Mason-Dixon line, Lake Avenue. In 1992, I redrew 2 ethnic majority influenced trustee areas by census tract. At least one pastor wrote to you. That was Father English of St. Andrews. In 2011, I drew an ethnic majority zone of 73,000 or 79% of the individuals. In 2012, I testified by reciting court cases, the Constitution, some state statutes, elections. Is my time up? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Enriquez.
Thank you. No other item? Okay, let's see. So at this time, we're on item E, approval of the minutes from meeting June 15th. Have a motion.
Approval of the meeting?
Moved by trustee Brown, seconded by trustee Hilsman. Any discussion? May I have the advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor, say aye or press your button.
Aye.
Hey, I pressed the green one, but the, ooh, defective button here.
What's your objection, President Watt?
So, motion passes unanimously. Gosh, who knows when we get better technology what it'll be. Okay, on item F, approval of consent items. Are there any items trustees wish to discuss further? Oh, so all items will, so may I have a motion to approve the consent
Move
items?
approval?
Second.
Moved by trustee Brown, seconded by trustee Osterling. Advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No.
See, Nunes didn't work either.
Yeah.
Bad technology here. Okay. Okay, so motion passes. Item G, we have a certification of signatures. Superintendent President Verdian.
It is recommended that the Board of Trustees authorize the following individuals as listed on the item to sign documents on behalf of the district.
May I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
So motion made by trustee Fellows, seconded by trustee Osterling. Any discussion? Advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we're on item H, appointment to the Measure P Citizens Oversight Committee. President Verdian.
I would like to ask Trustee Selvage to introduce Mr. Jeffrey Wang, who will be his representative on the Citizens Oversight Committee. Trustee Selvage.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Jeff Wong, who is resident of La Cañada, Flint Ridge. He is in Area 1. He's got pretty impressive academic credentials, degree in mathematics from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I'm familiar with that. And MBA from UCLA. He's been the treasurer of the city of La Cañada Flint Ridge for about 10 years. And he is extremely highly regarded in the community. And we've had a number of conversations about PCC and Measure P and what's involved in being on an oversight committee. So I heartily recommend him to fill the last vacancy on the oversight committee.
Thank you, Trustee Selvage.
And I move that he be appointed to the committee.
Second.
So moved by Trustee Selvage, seconded by Trustee Fellow. Advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, and congratulations and welcome, Mr. Wong.
Welcome.
Did you want to say a few words?
Good evening. Thanks very much to the Board of Trustees. A special thanks to Dr. Selvage for helping, by taking time out of his schedule to educate me on this position. I look forward to the opportunity to become a contributing member of this committee and helping out in Pasadena City College. I've taken classes here myself. I've enjoyed my time immensely here, and I look forward to hopefully representing my area well and to serve this fine institution that I think provides a lot of opportunity for all the communities around. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. I'm sorry I'm going to miss the next meeting the first meeting with you, but Trustee Selvage will be there, and I know he'll take care of everyone. Thank you. Okay, we are now on item I, approval of amended and restated employment agreement. President Verdian. Oh, it's mine. Oh, for the superintendent. It is mine. Okay, so this is the new contract, or this is a contract with our superintendent. So may I have a motion to approve this?
I move approval.
Second.
So moved by Trustee Brown, seconded by Trustee Fellow. Any discussion? Advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Dr. Verdian. We have you for at least another year.
Thank you very much.
have us for another year. Okay, we are now on item J, receive the initial sunshine proposal for negotiations for the 2016-17 year from the Pasadena Area Community College District to the Pasadena City College Faculty Association. President Verdian.
We recommend that the board receive the initial proposal for negotiations for the 2016-17 from the Pasadena Area Community College District to the Pasadena Community College Faculty Association.
May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Trustee Fellow, seconded by Trustee Selvage. Any discussion? Advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, let's see, we are now at K. May I have a motion to open public hearing regarding the initial sunshine proposal for negotiations for the 2016-17 year from the Pasadena Area Community College District to the Pasadena City College faculty?
So moved.
Are we on item L,
Okay.
Madam President?
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, who
Second.
moved? So moved by Trustee Selvage, seconded by Trustee Osterling. Any discussion? Oh.
Public hearing, anyone?
Oh, any public hearing on this? So this hearing is now closed. Do we need to approve? Okay. So may I have the advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes
Aye.
unanimously. Item L, receive the initial sunshine proposal for the negotiations for the 2016-17 year from the Pasadena City College Faculty Association to the Pasadena Area Community College District. Dr. Verdian.
We recommend that the board receive the proposal from the district to the association.
May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Hilsman, seconded by Trustee Fellow. Any discussion?
Just a quick point of clarification. It's from the association to the district.
Oh, did I
We're
read
on
that?
item
Did I read
L.
that incorrectly?
It should be the other way around, from the association to the district.
Yeah.
We'll make that.
Okay, just with that.
From the,
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, trustee.
Yeah.
so okay, so the item is,
It's
be
written
reworded.
correctly.
Reward
Yeah.
from the association to the district.
okay, so advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item M, we are now opening the public hearing regarding the initial sunshine proposal for negotiations for the 2016-17 year from the Pasadena City College Faculty Association, excuse me, to the Pasadena Area Community College District. Dr. Burdian. So may I have a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Is there, so
Second.
moved by trustee Fellow, seconded by trustee Hilsman. Any comments from the public? This item is now closed. May I have advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item N, approval of the creation for the of educational facilities for the Master Plan Board Subcommittee and disbanding of the ad hoc committee for the Centennial Facilities Master Plan. Superintendent Verdian?
Well, as you know, we currently have an ad hoc committee that had as a charge to help the college president establish the assumptions that would be necessary or that would be required for the creation of the educational and facilities master plan. This ad hoc committee has completed its charge of helping college president determine or set the assumptions for this master plan. And now that this ad hoc committee has completed its work, it is appropriate that the college ask the board to establish a subcommittee of the board that would help us move the college forward on creating the master plan itself and also coming up with ways on how the college will fund the completion of the master plan. Although we have here a master plan, the creation of a master plan subcommittee, what would also be helpful to the college if the board feels that we do not need a subcommittee, we could have an advisory committee to the college president that would comprise of at least 3 board members and a representative of each board member, selected by each board member coming from his or her district. And also we could have on that advisory council 2 faculty members and 2 classified staff and 2 representatives from management to advise the president. So I have discussed it with staff, and we do believe that this, either one of them, a subcommittee of the board or an advisory council that will help or guide the president in that, would be very helpful as we move forward towards the creation of the master plan and coming up with ways on how we're going to complete that master plan.
Thank you, Dr. Verdian. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
So moved by trustee Fellows, seconded by trustee Brown. Discussion?
Yeah, I
Oh.
do have a question.
Please press your button so you can be acknowledged. Any discussion on this? No, no discussion?
Berlinda.
Berlinda.
Yeah.
Gotta press that loud.
Okay, so I like the concept, but I have some little bit of concerns. Okay, so we have, I get the point about the ad hoc committee which we've had, that I got the reason and the need for us to get an advisory committee or counselor or whatever. Now, the only concern I have is at what point, because definitely it was well articulated that the board did not have enough input as we went through the process. And I see the need for the college constituents to be more involved. I see that as definitely important. But one thing that concerns me, or maybe you could tell me, at what point are we going to also get the community involved? That is really my biggest question, because definitely it's important, because our campus needs to be part of the process, because this is going to be everyone's thing. But we also need to have enough, and I'm not sure at what point we will engage the community. So that is my question.
You want me to address that? If we go with the advisory council, there will be at least 7 members of the community on that council. Each member will be nominated or appointed by a trustee. Okay.
And that's it?
So, but then also, we will be holding meetings in around here where we will be bringing community to give us input on that.
Okay, that's what I
We
was-
had a meeting 2 weeks ago with the neighborhood committee, and present at that meeting, we had the vice president, Dr. Storti, and we also had executive director Ruben Smith was present also at the meeting, where we did listen to what the community had to share with us on the master plan as
Okay.
we move forward.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Trustee?
Go
Trustee
ahead,
Selvage?
Dr. Selvage.
I don't understand what it is that we're being asked to approve. We've had what seems to be a discussion of a couple of options. Okay. So we've got 2 different options that you're recommending?
No, there are 2 options. There is either a subcommittee of the board, which would be exactly like the Budget and Audit Committee, or the committee that deals with policies and procedures, the committee that deals with KPCC, the committee that deals with,
Yes.
and so on, right? Or if we want to expand it and include more people, representatives from the outside community and the inside community, then an advisory council to the president would be more appropriate.
Trustee Osterling?
Well, to follow up, okay, now that clarifies that. My strong preference would be for a committee of the board, and we can call it an ad hoc or a standing committee or whatever we want to call it. I don't think there's a need to go into details about the legal ramifications of that right now, but I very strongly feel that we should have a committee of the board. The ad hoc committee, which had as 2 outside members, Lonnie Shield, former president of the foundation, and Jim Kostler, who was president here for 12 years after following Dr. Scott. Both of them really proved their value and were highly valued by the other members of the ad hoc committee, me and I know John and I believe Tony as well. So I strongly recommend that we have a board committee, that we keep the option of having outside members such as Dr. Kostler and Lonnie. I know both of them are willing to continue to serve. The expertise and experience and just a different perspective that they offer has been very, very valuable. So that's my strong recommendation. In addition, because we've been working on this for, let's see, I've been on the board for 2.5 years, and I think several months before I came on the board was when we had asked a number of firms to give us qualifications to help us with the master plan. So then we selected it and narrowed it down. We hired HGA, but we've been working on this for more than 2.5 years, and I feel that what we need to do at this point is in the very near future, I mean, it doesn't have to be next month or the month after, but in the very near future, before we get too much further, is to have a full board study session or workshop, whatever we want to call it. Well, something like a retreat, but there's no room for the retreat on the retreat agenda that we're going to have next month. But have a full board workshop type of meeting at which the entire board can be brought up to speed on what the whole process is and how far we got up through today or last month, and then look at how the process is expected to unfold into the future. There will be unquestionably points during the process of developing a plan from wherever we are right now to having a completed plan. There will undoubtedly be points where there need to be some policy considerations brought to the board, and that's the sort of thing that we can talk about, how we would do that in the workshop, and just make sure that every member of the board really understands the whole process and has time to ask these kinds of back and forth questions, and so that we all leave really having a good feel for where we are, what the path forward is, whatever kind of organization we have, ad hoc, regular committee, or community advisory. And you know what my preferences are, and I don't care what we call the committee. So,
Okay, so just to be, so that I'm clear on what you're saying, you're at this time making another amendment, or an amendment to the motion, or you're proposing a different structure?
well,
process.
if we go with the board committee, which I strongly recommend, and for the reasons I've mentioned, then this would be an additional provision that we schedule, when possible, so we don't get in the way of the retreat in August, so that we don't get in the way of the preparation that we're grinding through on making sure we do well at the
So, Madam Chair,
accreditation visit.
can I just, I would suggest that we continue the discussion before we make any additional amendments and
Right.
give the other trustees an
I just wanted to
opportunity
be,
talk
I just
about it.
wanted to be clear what Trustee
I didn't hear
Selvage
a
was
motion,
asking.
so I didn't
So,
hear a motion.
Trustee Osterling?
So I'm going to echo Trustee Hilsman's suggestion. We have a motion in front of us for a subcommittee of the board, but then when that was introduced or discussed, we brought up the idea of a advisory committee to the president, and then Trustee Selvage had some other ideas as well. Let me suggest that we table this and come up with the exact plan that we'd like to have to go forward. The composition and the points at which it'll report back to the full board, and then get that ironed out and bring it back up again. I'm going to suggest that we table this and refine it.
Okay. We already have a motion on the table, and and the second motion is then to table this. So first, let me ask Dr.
It was a
Verian, do you have a
suggestion.
strong preference for whether or not this would be a board subcommittee or an advisory?
An advisory council would provide much more input and feedback to the college, because it will include community involvement, external community and internal community involvement. Whereas if it is just a subcommittee of the board, it would be the board's pleasure to invite on an as-needed basis the experts that the board would want to listen to.
Trustee Hilsman?
I think, are you first, Tony?
Well, I just wanted to mention, I just want to make sure there's enough faculty input. I think this is very important to get their input. So I was more prone to go with a wider swath of people.
And my only suggestion is there no reason we can't do both? I mean, we could have an ad hoc, we could have a subcommittee of the board that would be composed of 3 trustees, and then we could also have an advisory council, which would meet on a less regular basis. Is that duplicative, do you think, of the effort?
If you have a subcommittee of the board and the 3 members of that subcommittee are also members of the advisory council, I think that would be an ideal situation. Whenever the board feels that we need to have a subcommittee meeting, the subcommittee can meet, but the advisory council will meet on a quarterly basis. That's the agreement that when we were discussing that in executive committee, we would have some kind of a quarterly meeting of the advisory council. And we will have much more input from a lot more people.
Trustee Hilsman?
Well, and I take your point, Jim, about the way it was initially presented, but my thought, since the last couple of board meetings have been preoccupied with this subject, that we need to get moving. So that would be my only concern if we postpone it. If we table the decision.
So let me respond to that. The proposal that we have in front of us that we're being asked to vote on is a pretty narrow and limited subcommittee of the board, and the suggestion is there needs to be more stakeholders involved in this process, and I agree with that, and that's not a motion that's in front of us. So I would, I'm not in favor of further delay. We want to get this thing back on track and get moving again, but I don't think that we want to I don't recommend that we approve the motion that's in front of us. Instead, I recommend that we follow up on some of these suggestions that have already been made that I think will have a better composition of the committee and a better result.
Well, so then can I make a motion?
We have a motion.
So we have a motion on the table. If you wanted to add something else, Superintendent President Verdian is offering to provide some wording that may help us amend this current motion. So, President Verdian?
Well, excuse me. Trustee Brown has made a motion, and I thought you had.
No, I did not make a motion.
It's the motion to table off of because the motion to table is automatic.
No, the motion to approve is already on, so we've already made that motion.
But this doesn't say which.
Right, it's
So it's-
because President Verdian then brought in these options, and that's why it's hard to know. So he's willing to make an amendment to amend the language on this, so.
The amendment I would propose is that we move forward with the subcommittee of the board with the understanding that the 3 members of that subcommittee will also be part of the President's Advisory Council on the Educational and Facilities Master Plan.
So the advisory council would run under, there would be the advisory council to the president, but there would be a subcommittee of the board who would also be members on the advisory. And what would
Well,
I'm so confused, I'm sorry.
No, that is confusing.
okay, we'll have that subcommittee of the board on Education Facilities Master Plan. But we also know that the subcommittee of the board will only have 3 members. That's all they will have. They can't have more than that. But we also feel that it is very important for us to have a wider range of input, because this is a very important topic. So if we create that advisory council to the president that will include 3 board members, plus the 7 selected representatives of the board members, and members of faculty, staff, and management, right? The 3 members who are the members of the subcommittee of the board would also be the same 3 members on the advisory council. So we can put all that together in the bylaws of the.
So if I can make a motion on your point, I would move that we amend the original motion to approve the subcommittee of the board and to have the president in our next board meeting advise us on the proposed composition of an advisory board for the president, which we will then approve.
Okay, so let me ask one other question before we move on this. What is the governance structure of these 2 bodies? Is it the board who's running this, or is it the president who's running this?
The advisory council is run by the president,
Okay.
and the subcommittee of the board meets at the request of the members of the subcommittee.
Okay, I get it. Okay, so
And-
who made the original motion? Did you want to add
Oh,
something else?
I made an amendment. I made a motion.
Ms. Thompson, who made the original motion? Dr. Fellow. So Dr. Fellow, do you accept this amendment?
Yes, you want to say it again so I can.
So I would move that we approve tonight the subcommittee of the board for the master plan, and that the president present us with a proposal for the advisory board, the composition of it and some of the details of it in our next meeting for approval.
That's fine, but I'm ready to go for the larger committee, but that's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second and an amendment, acceptance of the amendment. Any further discussion on this? Dr. Selvage?
Right, so we're going to have a subcommittee of the board, which will meet like any board subcommittee, and it's advisory only to the Board of Trustees. And then the separate President's Advisory Council, which will be a composition that he chooses, and with 2 members from the committee, the board committee, also meeting with them on a quarterly basis. Right.
Okay, no further discussion?
Further
Oh,
discussion.
sorry, Trustee
And
Osterling.
I thought the trustees were going to select members for the advisory from the community? Okay. I would, again, suggest, I don't want to slow things down here, but I would suggest we, rather than trying to do this by motions in a meeting, we revise what was put in front of us and take some time and get everything organized and present it at the next meeting and approve it there. The board subcommittee, the advisory committee, when the advisory committee, certain key points, when they're going to bring their results and their decisions back to the board, I think we can, if we take some time and we can get this better structured than what we have in front of us.
So we have a motion before us, I think, that we have to act on, and the amendment to the motion. If that is not approved, then we can take Trustee Osterling's motion then to table this and defer for future discussion. So if no other discussion on the current amended motion that is before us, may I have the advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So one no, so Trustee Osterling and all others, so the motion passes. So we will, well, I can't remember the amendment, but hopefully somebody has written.
Move on.
All right, we are now on item O, the Veterans Health Clinic, approval of release of non-privileged summary of the LCW legal opinion.
Madam President, we have 5 people who would like to speak this evening, and we'll begin with Linda Bybee.
Good evening, and thank you, trustees, and Dr. Verdeen for the opportunity to speak. I am the parent of a student here at Pasadena City College and a veteran. And I think it's very important to recognize that you have a very, very special program going here with your Veterans Resource Center. It has been nationally recognized, and I want to say that it has brought great benefit to my son, who looks to matriculate to Cal Poly after the great guidance he's received here. This Veterans Resource Center is the ideal location because of the quality of the people running the program and the innovations that are taking place here to create a veterans village, to co-locate a primary care clinic for veterans. It has all of the earmarks of continuing with innovation at this great institution. So to that end, I hope that tonight we will hear that you are going to release the document that has been given, I guess, some legal review in looking at how the innovative pathway for this clinic could continue. And I hope tonight that we're going to hear about that, and I hope that you will, as the trustees and the leaders of this institution, continue to support the innovative programs here. And I think there are going to be maybe some folks, veterans, that are going to speak tonight. This is a very special program you have going. These are very special people that you are transitioning here at Pasadena City College, and I hope that you will continue on this innovative path. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Bybee. Next is Christopher Villalobos, and on deck is Joseph Amador.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. I'm Sergeant Villalobos. I'd like to start off by giving you a little bit of information about who I am. I'm both a paratrooper and I work in civil affairs. So I deal with people on a regular basis from different cultures, different languages, and I understand a lot about what leadership is. Excuse me one sec. Strong leadership is a word we often associate those who are respected and trusted to make the right choices on a daily basis and in the most dire of situations. Yet here I stand and wonder who amongst you is the leader of this institution. I understand that many of you are not to blame for the lack of transparency, but as we say in the military, one team, one fight. Leadership is someone who shows composure and restraint during trivial times, and yet one amongst you has lashed out at us in a closed meeting, showing us that there is much to question over your decision over the VA clinic. There you are, and here I am, standing in front as I had promised that I would return and continue to protest this lack of leadership. Today you will decide as to whether or not to share the legal information within Title V that notes the reasoning behind the denial of the clinic. As you will find out from my brothers and sisters, no matter what wall you may place in front of us, we will decimate it. Thank you for your time.
Joseph Amador.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Joseph Amador. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight on behalf of the PCC veterans. We are all here today to urge you, the board, to release the lawyer's recommendation and also the statutes that state we cannot enter into a contract with the VA in Title V. After the Board of Trustees voted to allow fundraising for the VA clinic, 2 years later, we were told that we cannot go forth with this clinic. It is now time for some transparency. We need to know why we can't move forward with these plans that have been in the woodworks for 2 years now, and we need to see it in writing. This is not just me, and this is not just the PCC veterans. This is a whole veteran community that is really feeling confused and feeling pretty wronged. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Castanov.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark, and I have been here for 3 years. I am an Army veteran, served 2 tours in Iraq and a tour in Afghanistan. 2 years ago, when we first found out that the clinic was about to come here, was a great day for me, because coming to school every day, working every day, trying to provide for my family, it meant that I would be able to take care of some of the things that were wrong with me. Not wrong, but that was some injuries that I've taken in my service to this country. It's not often that I get to go to the VA clinic, because they often schedule my appointments around my classes, and I can't always ditch my classes to go to my appointments. It was very important to me when they said this, that we can push this through, and so we worked very hard. And we kept working very hard with you guys to make sure that this thing happened. And when it didn't happen, we were very upset, needless to say. But if it's done, it's done. But we do need to know and see why. And we urge you guys to please vote yes to release this information for the rest of us and for the brothers and sisters that will be here after us, so they know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And finally, Cesar Jimenez, Jr.
Good evening. My name is Cesar Jimenez Jr. I'm a 26-year veteran in the United States Air Force. I'm a 1 year, I've been coming here for a year now. Very fortunate to come across a department as the Veterans Resource Center. I just came across it by dumb luck. And it's been very helpful to not just myself, but many veterans before me and after me. I'm very discouraged, but sitting here watching you all not know who's on first makes me understand why we've waited so long, 2 years, and to hear that we're not going to have perhaps a veterans clinic makes sense to me now, because by looking at you all, you guys don't even know what you guys want to do. I ask for you to please vote yes on the motion to be transparent to us. We ask you to have an open vote so we can see who exactly is against us. It's not all of you. It's not personal. It's business. And if we are not happy with the outcome, I will be filing a congressional. I'm very good at that. I've had to answer congressionals over my 26th career. You may not have to answer to us, but you definitely have to answer to Congress. We'll see what's going on. You think that you can throw lipstick on a pig by pacifying us and saying we're going to make the Veterans Resource Clinic bigger. You know what? You can't sell us. We're not going to be sold out. So I respectfully ask that you vote yes, that you're transparent with us, because this clinic isn't just for the students here at PCC. It's for the community, whether you realize or not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, and thank you to the parent of the veteran who came. So, Dr. Verdian, do you want to go ahead and give your opinion?
The college recommends that the Board of Trustees, governing board of the Pasadena Area Community College District, to approve for the college, for the superintendent of the college and the college executive staff to work with the firm of AALL&R to prepare a non-privileged summary of the legal opinion that can be released.
Move approval.
Second.
So moved by Trustee Selvage, seconded by Trustee Fellow. Is there any discussion? May I have the advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all for coming. Item P, approval of the Board of Trustees meeting date change. We have a change for the November meeting date.
The November 16th board meeting coincides with the CCLC conference, and as several board members and college staff will be in attendance, we are asking that we move the meeting to November 30th. We're not going to move it to November 23rd because that's the night before Thanksgiving, so we'll move it to November 30th.
Okay, so as Dr. Verdian said, it's on that date coincides or conflicts with the annual league conference and also the CEO annual meeting. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Osterling. Second.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Fellow. May I have discussion?
Yes. What day of the week is that? I'm sorry.
Wednesday.
Oh, it's a Wednesday.
It's a
Okay,
Wednesday.
sure.
Wednesday
It's
30th.
the last Wednesday.
I have a
Trustee
question.
Brown.
So if we move our meeting to November 30th, what will be our next meeting?
In December, we only have one meeting, and it's on the 14th of December. That's the organizational meeting.
Right.
Mhm.
All right. Any further discussion on this? May I have the advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting date is now changed. Okay. Wow, we're going through this fast. Okay, we're now on information items.
Approve.
Oh, sorry. Item Q, gosh, and Trustee Osterling and Hilsman and I worked on this. So we're now on the approval of the Board of Trustees self-evaluation instrument. So Is that under Dr. Verdian? Shouldn't that be under us?
It should have been under you.
Yes, should have been under me. And at this time, as I said, that subcommittee was appointed at our last meeting, and it was comprised of Trustee Hilsman, Osterling, and myself. So at this time, I'd like to turn the discussion, oh no, we're not at discussion. May I have a motion to approve first?
Move to approve.
Approval by Trustee Selvage. May I have a second?
Second?
Seconded by Trustee Fellow. Discussion. So Trustee Hilsman, can you discuss this item with the trustees?
Yes. We use as a model the previous self-evaluation instrument. There were some suggestions in the subcommittee that we edit it a bit, make it more brief, and also that we, cognizant of the fact that we're a policy-making organization, and that it wouldn't be appropriate for us to evaluate the implementation of our policies. There was some confusion about that in the previous form. So we tried to tighten it up so that it would address the primary function of the board, which is to make policy, rather than to evaluate ourselves personally, as a board, on the implementation of that policy. In other words, we're trying to avoid the issue of micromanaging the college as board members, because our charge is to set policy, and we must leave it to the president, superintendent, and the staff and the faculty to implement those policies. So that's the long and the short of it.
Trustee Osterling, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add, just the timing, when these evaluations are due by each of the trustees. I don't recall. I know we discussed it, but we should.
Are there any changes to this instrument or any of the questions, or is everyone okay? Well, I had a few, and I apologize. I probably should have read this better when I was working with Trustees Osterling and Hilsman. So on page 3, towards the bottom, so 3 of the document, it talks about ensures the fiscal plan is adequate and well-maintained. So while that is really outside of what the trustees could actually do, we probably should change that more to reflect policy to ensure.
Which page?
Where was that?
Page 3. Page 3.
Which item?
So if you go almost down towards the end, it's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, probably about 6 from the bottom.
Physical plan adequate and well.
Right, right.
Okay.
And then probably 2 from the bottom, approves and monitors the construction of projects, which we actually don't do, so we probably should just have reports that reflect that.
We're going through, I'm trying to track which ones. Okay, the second one that you just mentioned?
Second one from the bottom, same page.
Establishes procedure for soliciting.
No. Approves and monitors
Approves.
construction projects. Yeah, so,
We approve construction projects, and we are the people that authorize the expenditures for them.
right, and so we should word it in a way that reflects what our actual work is, but we don't actually monitor the project and the construction.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
On page 7, under goal 3, so under let's see, so 5th down, creates consistent processes for employee representation at the board meetings. So
Agreed.
we probably need to change that a little bit. And distributing the board summaries, so although Director Boekelheide does distribute the board summaries, we're not really in charge of distributing it, so
Agreed.
we should probably make that
Agreed.
change. On page 8, second one, creates continuous feedback on the effectiveness of board actions. So we probably should word that in a maybe different way, so I'm not sure how we would, other than people coming to the board, I guess that would be one way, but we should probably have worded in a different way that really allows us to maybe do this in a more quantitative way and within our own, the realm, I guess, of our authority. So if we could maybe look at the wording on that a little bit.
What
before
I'll
we
do is
submit
I can suggest a change, and I'll run it by you.
Great.
So,
Thank you very
President Waugh, are you suggesting that we do some further work on this and resubmit this back to the board?
No, I think that we could approve it if all the trustees are okay with it, as long as we pointed out some of those areas where maybe we needed some better wording, so it fell more within the realm of what our actual responsibilities
So
are.
we'd be approving it subject to those changes to be determined.
Right, and
Okay.
I would leave it then to the subcommittee, which would be you and trustee Hilsman to put
Understood.
together.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion on this? May I have an advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we are now at the information items. So the President Superintendent's report. President Verdian?
President Bob, would it be okay with you if I were to ask Interim Executive Director Matt Cameron to be part of my report and give you a brief update on the board docs implementation plan?
Absolutely. Welcome.
Good evening, trustees. At the previous meeting, the trustees requested for an implementation plan detailing the rollout for the Board Docs product. Trustee Martin also suggested that at one of the meetings, at the first meeting, maybe we can run Board Docs parallel with a paper board meeting, the traditional process. And so we've developed a implementation plan that captures that. And so the plan is to provide training at the August 17th date, but we will not go live on the 17th of August. What we will do is go live on the following meeting, September 7th, with a paper copy there to help us in case anything goes sideways. And so what that'll do is give us a very gentle rollout, and it'll also give us time to get accustomed to the equipment that we've purchased. To add on to that, as we mentioned, a device option that's provided by the district is going to be a Chromebook, and we received them this morning. And so we have two of them over there by Mary. I'll pass them out for the trustees to take a look at. These are cost effective, but they're very durable. They are also very secure. You turn them on, it goes where you need it to go. It's very easy to use. And so we think this is a good approach.
Any questions for Director Kaiman? Well, as a systems person, I'm always in favor of a parallel run, so it's always good to have a backup here.
Yeah, safer is better.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we're all looking forward to the implementation and looking forward to trying out the Chrome notebook. So thank you very much for your work on this.
Excellent. Thank you.
Dr. Verdian?
Well, thank you very much, Matt Cameron. Well, members of the board and President Hua, I want to start by welcoming all the new members of the staff that we have present at the board meeting tonight. I want to start by welcoming our Vice President, new Vice Presidents, Dr. Terry Juni for instruction, Dr. Richard Story, Business and Administrative Services, Dr. Cynthia Olivo, I believe, right. Vice President for Student Services, Dr. Lisa Norman, Vice President for Human Resources. And also we have present today as guests at this meeting, we have our new deans, Dean Dion Miller from Kinesiology and Athletics, Dr. Ketmani Kwan Chow, the Associate Dean for Special Services. At the back we have Ms. Natalie Russell, yeah, Ms. Natalie Russell, Dean of Foreign Languages and Languages, right? And we also have, well, Dr. Sifoni, we introduced you last time, and then, all right. All right. And I think that's it, right? Well, welcome, all of you, welcome to Pasadena City College, and we are very proud to have you here, and we are looking forward to a wonderful year with all of you on board. I also want to seize this opportunity to extend our congratulations to Eloy Ortiz Oakley, the Superintendent President of Long Beach City College, who will be the next Chancellor of the California Community College System, effective December 19th. Eloy has been a force of nature in Long Beach, and we're looking forward to working very closely with him. We have a very close relationship with Long Beach City College, and we know that Eloy will be a very strong proponent of the community colleges, and that we are looking forward to Eloy leading the system. Well, many in our community have expressed shock and sadness in the wake of the terrible violence we've seen in recent weeks, from Louisiana to Minnesota to Dallas to Nice, France, and then just again this week with the police officers in Baton Rouge. As PCC students, faculty, and staff struggle to understand what is happening, I would like to highlight the work of those helpful people who have reached out and comforted their friends and colleagues who have needed it. As a community of teachers and learners, we are trained by our nature to talk and listen to each other as we seek greater understanding about the world around us. The forums, conversations, and open dialogue that have grown in recent weeks are a source of comfort for many and a sign of our collective ability to work together for a brighter future. I encourage all of you to get involved with these efforts on campus, and I hope you will reach out to learn more. On a different note, PCC is one of 12 institutions around the country that have been chosen to work on the Open Educational Resource Publisher, that's the OpenStax. As an OpenStax institutional partner, PCC will receive free consultation on ways to increase the use of open source textbooks on campus, with an eye toward increasing student success while realizing savings of more than $400,000. We are very excited about this opportunity, and I would like to thank everyone on campus, especially our faculty, for working hard to make this a reality. Thank you very much, Dr. Foster, and I hope you'll transmit this to our faculty and thank them on our behalf. Earlier this month, 7 students began a 6-week paid summer undergraduate research internship at Cal Poly Pomona. The opportunity is giving PCC's E-STEM students the chance to gain practical skills and knowledge that will help them when transferring to complete their degree. For those of you who enjoy watching shows, our theater department is currently in the middle of the run of its summer musical, Spring Awakening, in the Center for the Arts Theater. If you have an opportunity, please attend one of those performances. This fall, many on campus will be reading Octavia Butler's Kindred as part of the One College, One Book program run by Pathways. Let us not forget that Octavia Butler is an alumnus of PCC. And the book traces the story of a woman in modern-day California who is transported through time to witness her ancestors' life on a southern plantation. I hope you will add this novel to your summer reading list. Next time, maybe we'll ask you some questions about it. I'm also pleased you've just heard from our very own Matt Cameron about board docs. But if you want in the same line, we must thank Alex and his team for the wonderful work that they have done with our new website. And I'm sure you've all had the opportunity to verify and check what we've been doing on the new website. My congratulations to you and your team, Alex, and please convey my best to Michael Eyrig, Dave Smith, and our team from Mackey Creative, whose long hours and hard work made this possible. And you will also notice that our student services area has opened a special welcome center in Harbison Hall this summer. Incoming fall 2016 students will be able to come to the center to accomplish all of the necessary tasks to start their studies in the fall, while also learning about what life as a PCC student is like. I will be remiss if I don't thank Ms. Crystal Koros for putting together a list of all the grants that we have obtained at the college. So far, for 2016-17, we have been awarded $6,395,000, and we still have another 6 more months to go. We have bridges to stem cell research and therapy. The total award would be $3 million. We currently have received $608,000. Early career undergraduate research experience, total award $850,000. We've received so far $298,000. PCC Talent Search, total award $1.2 million. So far we've received $240,000. The TRIO programs from the Department of Education, total award $1.2 million. So far $240,000. City of Pasadena, Community Development Block Grants, total award $50,000. So far we've received $25,000. And finally, Project LEAP Mentoring Program, total award $50,000. So far we've received $25,000. And this tells us the caliber of the institution that we all represent and the hard work of faculty and staff to better serve our students. And this concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Verdine. Okay, so at this time, we're under item T, under announcements. So we'll have announcements by the shared governance representatives and by the board. So we'll start with AS, our student.
Hello, good evening to the Board of Trustees. Associated Students has been actively meeting in anticipation of Welcome Day, our annual event. However, we're changing the name to New Student Success Day and Open House. This is going to be August 26th. We'll be holding workshops we're expecting around 1,000, maybe 2,000 students, and a convocation from President Dr. Verdine, which we are very excited about. In addition, we'll be holding our own event, Welcome Week, the following week at the beginning of school. So that's very exciting for us. We also want to say thank you on behalf of students for the Welcome Center. It's been an incredible addition to this campus, and we're hoping to get more students funneling through there as a resource. Thank you.
Thank you, President Russo. So the Classified Senate, Ms. Mitchell.
Yes, good evening. Just want to say that the Classified Senate attended CLI last month. We were well attended from PCC. About 15 of us went. There were about 3 new members of the Classified Senate, and they were very impressed with the Classified Senate, and they are eager to work with us. We did have our elections also today, and our new president of Classified Senate is Jenny Sullivan, and the vice president is Graciela, and I will be taking on the role again of Board of Trustees rep. Thank you. That's it.
Congratulations on your elections. Thank you. Mr. Fettner, management.
Yes, I want to thank the members of the board and the executive team and my fellow managers and Dr. Veridian, all of whom made our Classified Appreciation Day on the 30th of June a very successful event. And I would like to also thank those who recommended we move it inside rather than keeping it on the outside, which was the original plan. So thank you very much.
That was a lot of fun and great
And
success.
I understand you walked away with a prize, didn't you?
I did. I have a PCC extra large T-shirt.
There you go.
I was one of the few people who didn't win one of the drawings.
Yes, everybody but...
That was by design, Dr.
Right.
Savage.
We made sure. Okay, Dr. Foster.
Good evening, Board. I just want to let you know that myself and members of the Executive Committee have met with Terry to discuss faculty issues and his vision, and we're going to continue to meet with him to bring him up to speed on what's going on at Pasadena. And also, the Flex Advisory Committee has been collaborating with the Equity Committee to design our Flex Day for the fall, which will be October 6th. We're going to do an equity theme, and we're hoping that that day will kick off a series of equity pathways that will be offered to all of the campus constituents throughout the whole year.
Thank you. I also want to thank you and congratulate you on the OER. That's a great accomplishment, something I think we'll all look forward to.
Walter Butler is the primary faculty who was in charge of that. So
Great. Well, tell him thank you on behalf of the board. Why don't we start at this end? So, Trustee Grappian.
Hello, everyone. I have a quick report today. So the associated students have voted to approve working with Dean Rebecca Cobb and Metro to offer a UPass program to PCC students. As you know, our previous ITAP program has expired, and the associated students are looking forward to offering the UPass program, which would reduce the cost of the Metro Pass by at least 50% for students. And we're looking forward to moving forward with the negotiations with Metro to offer this pass to our students.
Congratulations. I know it's been a lot of work. Trustee Brown.
I have no report today.
Trustee Hilsman.
Nothing special, but I wanted to, again, I want to congratulate you on the Metro. I think that's so important, and also on the open source, Dr. Foster, because, you know, one of the great needs of our students, and they're often financially stressed. The Metro Pass will help with that, and the open source is such an important sort of path to the future in terms of our students and affording textbooks for them that aren't overpriced. As somebody who's been involved to some degree in the publishing business, I understand what a ripoff the New York publishers are. So I'm glad to see that that the college continues the battle on that front. Congratulations.
Thank you. Trustee Selvage.
Yes, I'd like to point out something which we all received as part of our package. You know, this document here is called Observations 2014-15. It's the latest version of a document that I didn't know existed about a year ago. I discovered last year's version of this during the summer, and I think I'm known by, in some circles as somebody who kind of likes to look at numbers and how things get measured. And this is an extraordinary document. It's very well organized, presented, the graphics are good and all that. And if you go online, you can click on different chapters and it goes right to that online. But going through this, I recommend my fellow trustees, we all got a copy of it. I found it extremely informative about what we're teaching and the types of people that we're teaching these things to. If you look at, for instance, the demographics of the students who take credit courses, you'll find a certain profile. If you look at the demographic profile of the students that take the career technical education, you'll find a different profile. If you look at groups such as the government or the veterans or the EOPS, there's still another profile. But you know, seeing the different types of students that are going into these various programs that are all part of our enormous and varied mission, I just found really informative. And it's got figures on success and that kind of thing. So I don't expect anybody to memorize all this stuff, but you know, going through this, you'll see things that may have application later on when we're talking about various matters of policy that are brought to the board. So I heartily recommend that the other trustees really go through this and just be surprised about how much information there is here, how easy it is to find it, and maybe it'll help us be a little bit better when we do the policy making that we're supposed to. So congratulations to the people who put it together.
Yes, it is an excellent report, and I believe, Dr. Verdian, you are going to go through and do a highlight in conjunction with the budget using this report.
In November, we will have the college annual report, and the highlights from this document will appear in the annual report, and the annual report is a much smaller document that we distribute to the community at large.
But as Trustee Selvage has said, this really is an excellent report and gives a lot of information.
And we do anticipate that he will memorize the report.
I'm on page 78, and there are only 130 pages.
Yeah. Yes, we rely on Trustee Selvage for these details.
Somebody has to do it.
That's right. It's a tough job. Trustee Fellow, welcome back from Italy.
Thank you, Madam President. I do want to say I'm going to be at the ACCT Leadership conference in Washington, D.C., the August 1st to the 3rd. And I do want to welcome the new executive team. I think you've done an outstanding job selecting this team, and their qualifications are outstanding. And as you are closing on your first year here, I just want to say this trustee is very impressed with what you've done, and I thank you.
And that's why we approved that contract. Trustee Osterling.
I also want to echo Dr. Verdian's welcome to all the new administration that was introduced here tonight. I think rounding out the team is really going to help you kick it into high gear in your second year. I also want to thank those members of the Measure P Oversight Committee that have already been recognized, and our newest member on the committee. These folks labor in obscurity for years dealing with obscure financial matters, but it really is important. We're going to be ramping up to complete our Centennial's Facilities Master Plan, which ultimately is going to lead to a new bond measure. And because of the oversight of this committee and their making sure that the Measure P, the last bond measure, the money was spent correctly and in compliance with the bond measure, and the facilities were built basically on time and on budget, we're going to look good the next time we go out for a bond. And we only have to go down the road and read the Star News about a nearby K-12 that didn't even have an oversight committee, and the mess that they've got themselves in to appreciate what our group has done here and how important it is for what we're teeing up. And then lastly, on that same subject, Trustee Selvage and I later this week on Friday are going to attend a master plan workshop for community college trustees up in Berkeley. Thank you.
Thank you all, and also welcome to the executive team. And it's nice that to see Dr. Verdian now has a good team. He always had a good team, but it's good to see this new executive team together. So we look forward to working with you. And I'll be off at the DNC next week, so our next meeting will not be until August. August, we'll have our retreat, right? Okay, and then so let's see, we have proposed future agenda items. Oh, no, we have the dates, the proposed future dates.
Trustee Hua, you had mentioned about the September 7th being the goal setting and strategic planning. It will be a bit difficult because we have to submit the budget to the state according to the law by September 15th. So therefore, we need to have that September 7th as a regular business meeting so that we can get the budget approved. You will need to see a budget presentation, go through the discussion, and then approve the budget on that day. So we will not, that's why we looked at it again, and unless we do a goal setting and strategic planning on a Saturday prior to September 7th. And in that case, we can cancel the September 21st meeting. But that will cause a problem also because of the accreditation self-study that needs to be submitted to ACCJC for October 15th.
So the September 7th, we originally had it as a study session, and you're saying now we're making this a regular business meeting because it needs to, because of the financial, reports, okay, the budget. Okay, and then, so now we're moving the study session down to September 21st.
September 21st.
But that could be used as a goal setting, albeit a bit
goal setting and
late.
strategic planning on that day.
So I'm going to leave this to the trustees. Is there any objection or to using the September 21st date as our goal setting? Okay, so we're all in favor of that. So the proposed future meeting dates with those changes are acceptable to all of the trustees. At this time, are there any proposed future agenda items? So one of the things I'd asked Dr. Verdian to do was, I don't know if we have a copy of the legal opinion on the board's role in setting the agenda. That was one thing we were going to share with the board, not? Yes? No?
Not today.
Not today. Okay. No problem. So let me just say that, so Dr. Verdian and I have had a lot of discussions about how the agenda gets set. So at this time, we'll stay with our current process, and anything that needs to go on future agendas should be submitted at this time, and then Dr. Verdi and I will discuss it before it gets published. Okay, so at this time, we will,
Any item coming from the board?
oh, any items coming from the boards? I thought I called for that.
Okay.
Maybe I went too fast. Any future items? Okay, that's what I thought. I called for it. Okay. So at this time, we will adjourn the board meeting.